Welcome to the Eastern Sib podcast at the Historian's Eye. Please subscribe, and if you'd like to be notified when new episodes are released, click the bell icon.
The Qin dynasty was brief in duration, from 221 to 206 BC, but very important in Chinese history. It followed the Zhou dynasty, which was from 1046 to 256 BC, and it ended when Li Bang became the king of Han in 206 BC, which was the formal beginning of the Han dynasty. Despite its brevity, the Qin dynasty left important marks on Chinese culture. In fact, the name China is derived from the name Qin. About 771 BC, a barbarian invasion drove the Zhou rulers eastward. During this time, the state of Qin became responsible for guarding the western frontier, and they gradually moved eastward and eventually occupied the original Zhou domains. Thus, the Qin became a close ally of the Zhou, and they also had marriage relations with the Zhou ruling class. Qin was, at that time, very aware of the fact that they could be a great power. The elevation to nobility of the Qin meant that the Qin could become more ambitious and better fend off attacks from surrounding regions. As a consequence, these centuries spent fighting non-Chinese tribes helped the Qin gain valuable experience in warfare and territorial expansion. Of the many Chinese states, Qin had advantage of a favorable location. Its territory in modern Jiangxi province is guarded from the east by mountains and gorges, and has easy access to the North China Plain through the Yellow River passes. No major battle ever took place in Qin's heartland. This benefit and others, such as the size of the Qin army and their expertise using the chariot, contributed to their success in warfare. The Qin had all the resources and advantages, but what finally gave them victory over the other states was their ruthlessness in battle. The Qin statesman Shen Yan advocated total war and a disregard for the polite policies of battle, which Chinese generals had always adhered to. His lessons were implemented by Ying Zheng, king of Qin, who emerged victorious from the Warring States period and claimed himself Shi Huangti, which means first emperor, of China in 221 BC. About 230 BC, when the final campaign to unify China began, it is estimated that Qin controlled 1/3 of all the land under cultivation in China, and 1/3 of China's total population. Early in the Qin dynasty, the practice of legalism reached its peak in Chinese history. This idea of state policy was derived by Shang Yang, who came to Qin as a foreign advisor. Qin was lacking early on in skilled intellectuals and politicians, and therefore had to look beyond its borders for talented people. Shang Yang was one of those foreign talented persons who had a lasting influence on the Qin Empire. During his time as minister, Shang Yang radically renovated the policies of government, but in fact he simply revived a practice which was already present for years, a form of government with a focus on greater efficiency and less adherence to tradition, in which strict adherence to the letter of the law was made paramount, hence the name legalism. Emperor Shi Huangti approved of Shang Yang's policies and implemented them across his realm. This form of government consisted of a collectivization program and the decimation of aristocratic power. Farmers were freed from serfdom. Shi Huangti reduced the power of the aristocracy. The people throughout the empire were now supposed to bear collective responsibility for each other. If a person did not behave according to the rules, then others were required to report him. If they did not do this, they were quartered or beheaded. Those who contributed the most to the state were highly regarded, while those whose lives were considered of no consequence were sent to work as slaves in building projects such as the Great Wall of China, the Grand Canal, and the roads, which increased ease of travel and trade. Another result of the legalism of Shi Huangti was that scholarship was strongly suppressed and literacy denied to the majority of the populace. Shi Huangti believed that uneducated people were easier to control, so the people should remain stupid so that they would never think to doubt who was in charge of the empire. This policy resulted in the burning of books on a large scale, and in 221 BC, on the advice of his chief advisor, Li Su, Shi Huangti, had scholars executed on a large scale. Books were banned throughout the empire, as was teaching, except for subjects touching upon the rewritten history of the Qin dynasty, legalism, or the personal glory of Shi Huangti. It was not until the later Han dynasty that books were recovered from hiding and repaired, and literacy was again available to the people of China. Although Shi Huangti and Xiangyang's legalism were hated by many at the time, later Qin kings and emperors of China were well aware of the strong impact that legalism had on the efficiency and strength of the state. Legalism helped to create a superior army, a disciplined bureaucracy, an obedient populace, and the unquestioned authority of a strong central government. This bureaucratic model became the standard for Chinese government and is still maintained in some form today. In the year 210 BC, Emperor Shi Huangti died on a journey through the realm. The people were told that these trips were designed for the inspection of the empire, but later evidence suggests that the emperor was looking for an elixir of immortality. In his later years, Shi Huangti became obsessed with death and the hope of eternal life. In constant fear of assassination, it is said that he never slept in the same room of his palace 2 nights consecutively, and he ordered the construction of an elaborate tomb, including the terracotta warriors. Early on in his reign, the cause of his death is still unknown. Li Xiu, then prime minister of the recently deceased emperor, tried to hide the fact that Shi Huangti was deceased. There was an attempt to place Shi Huangti, second son, on the throne. Due to the weakness of this son, the oppressed people of China grew bolder and soon began to revolt. Through a series of uprising and rebel alliances, Qin authority was overthrown in the year 206 BC in the capital of Zhengyang. The imperial house was massacred, and the Qin dynasty was thus at an end. A complicated series of battles followed for the honor of being the successor to the Qin dynasty, which resulted in the period known as the Chu-Han contention, in which Zhang Yu of the state of Chu fought Liu Bang of Han for supremacy. Liu Bang emerged victorious following Zhang Yu's defeat at the Battle of Gaexia in 202 BC. Liu Bang was applauded as a man of the people. After his victory, he founded the Han dynasty. The Qin dynasty created the standard of bureaucratic government, and the legalist policies first initiated by the Qin are still seen in China today. In addition, the dynasty left a wonder of ancient artwork, the terracotta army of Qian. The tomb reflects the character of the Chinese emperor and his unended desire to be immortal. The terracotta army also exemplifies what Chinese society at the time was able to produce once it had been formed as a state. The most famous legacy left by the Qin is the Great Wall of China. Although the present structure does not date from the Qin dynasty, it was begun under Shi Huangti, as was the Grand Canal, the roads which today link the cities of China and the countryside. The Qin did more than just found a dynasty in China. They brought a continent together.